Alright guys, TechGrab here, and today I want to talk about the yearly cycle of Call of Duty. Today is New Year's Eve, I believe, or maybe New Year's Day by the time we get around to watching this. I'm on holiday at the moment, so I'm recording this in advance. Hopefully I won't have missed any major news stories or anything like that, but I'll deal with that stuff when I return on the 3rd of January or whatever I'm coming back. Regardless, today I want to talk about the yearly cycle of Call of Duty. I was thinking, it's coming to the end of the year. This was kind of on my mind, and I saw a Reddit post about this several weeks ago, and I thought, okay, I'll save it up for this video. A couple of days ago, I did a video on coaches. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I haven't had a chance to get the feedback yet, considering I'm recording this way in advance, but that video is in a similar vein to what I want to do in this one. I'm going through my opinions on it. I'm sure your guys' opinions will be way more insightful and interesting than mine will be in the comment section below, so feel free to leave any thoughts you would like, and I'll read through all of them if I get the opportunity, as I always do. Today, the yearly cycle of Call of Duty games. This is something that we really don't see in any other esport, and comes largely because Call of Duty as a franchise is a casual franchise from Activision. It really does pump out a hell of a lot of money, and competitive has always been put on the back burner a little bit. So we'll try and marry those things up today. I'll go through some of my thoughts on it, and then I'll look through this Reddit post, see what people have to say. So yeah, I think you guys will enjoy it. So like if you do, subscribe. If you're new and you think I've done all that good stuff as always, the yearly cycle has really been a thing as long as I can remember, COD 4, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, Ghost, Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, World War 2, Black Ops 4 now. All of these games, every single year a new one's come out. And that's really defined Call of Duty. It's something we kind of take for granted, but it's something a lot of people in an ideal world we wouldn't have to deal with, because there's a lot of problems with having to have a new game every single year in terms of the competitiveness of the game. You look at it from that aspect. So the way I see it, you look at other esports, you've got something like Counter-Strike, got something like League of Legends. The game has basically been the same for ages. Counter-Strike Global Offensive came out in 2012. Since then, the maps have largely been the same. Maybe Overpass got added in, but basically every other map in the game has been around for donkey's years, really, and they've just refined and improved them over time, made some weapon balancing changes. There's still things that can be changed about the game, but it's in a very highly competitive state at the current time, and that's 6 years down the line, and many more years when you consider the development of the maps from like 20 plus years ago. Same kind of thing in League of Legends. They keep it fresh by adding new champions, like the special characters, those sort of things over time, but the map is still the same, the game effectively still works the same years into the future. Call of Duty, we don't have anything like that. The new game comes out in typically November, but from now it's been October, right? Or at least this year's October. Don't know what exactly is going to happen next year. And every single year we get a new game. And that's a lot of excitement for a lot of people. And it definitely keeps things fresh. I see a lot of people saying that 5v5 was great to help keep the game fresh. And I'm like, we get a new game every single year. Like, isn't that enough refreshment compared to what other esports get, for example, when they don't have anything like that? But there are definitely some issues with having a new game every year. So I'll go through some issues that I've got on my mind. The first thing is perfecting the game for competitive play. This doesn't happen like ever, or at least for several months down the line. You look at every single game we've ever had. Black Ops 4 maybe even is a slight exception, because we basically had 2 months until the first event. There was a lot of kinks ironed out. Of course, the game isn't ideal. I think a lot of people would like to, specialists weren't a thing at all, but regardless, they're in the game, and probably the game that we played at Vegas is going to be relatively similar to the game we're playing at the end of the year. However, you've looked at previous Call of Duty events. You had CWL Vegas at the start of Infinite Warfare, when you had the OSA meta, and you had the skinny bot, the whatever the robot's name was called, that could like rewind in the air. Like, awful stuff like that was in the game. All the other Call of Duties, we've seen things like the FG42, which is eventually nerfed into oblivion, and the metagame changes very significantly, as is tradition, in the first several months, taking several months to balance down to a point where, okay, these are the good maps, these are the best game modes on those maps, and before you can even get to a point where teams can start to develop real strategies, it's several months into the game and you're already a couple of events in. Maybe Black Ops 4, as I say, has changed the meta a little bit, going back to an October release, but having an event in December, less things to change around, but definitely something we've seen in the past where, it takes until at least the Pro League's kicking off before you get a sense of, okay, this is probably about the type of game that we're going to be playing for the next year. Another thing is, because different developers make the game every year, they keep having to put in the same competitive support again and again and again. You go back to Black Ops 2, we had a fantastic league play system, right? You go into the next games, each developer has to put in their own league play system, to the point that in Black Ops 4, it's actually pathetic. The fact that we don't even have league play. Someone commented on a video the other day, like, between 100 Thieves and Team Sweden on that Control. Oh, I can't wait to play Control in league play. Well, where the hell is it? Like, it's been 2 months since release. Maybe 3-4 months, who knows when we're getting league play. There's no GB integration as well. Like, people harped on about World War II was a bad game, but you look at it from a competitive stance, at least we had league play like 1 month after release, which wasn't fantastic, but at least it worked to some extent. There was a few bugs and glitches, but at least it was there with the competitive rules. At least they made maps that were, maybe boring, but they were tailored to competitive play at least. They were relatively balanced in that sense. And also you had game battles integration. Maybe some of you guys aren't so aware of what game battles is, but effectively, if you want to play a competitive match, 3v3, 4v4 against other players, and league play isn't a thing that will help you do that, you have to go on MLG game battles, you search for a game, and you can battle up against opponents. In Infinite Warfare and in World War II, we had the system where you could just link your PlayStation account to your Game Battles account and it would automatically pair you together in the lobby. You didn't have to worry about adding them as a friend, getting them in your game, all of that stuff. This is a thing that if we had a game that was the same every year for like at least a few years in a row, they could add this at the start and we don't have to worry about it for the next year. But the problem is that World War II, great as GB integration, league play is pretty good, but now we've got to think about how we get that league play system to be even better. And the developer who's making Black Ops 4, Treyarch in this instance, basically has to go back from scratch and then make it all over again. However, if we had a consistent game, they could put it in once and then they can improve on it over time. And GB integration is a thing that, the fact that it's been in Infinite Warfare and World War II and we don't have it in Black Ops 4 is frankly pathetic. And it's, I guess you can blame Treyarch, but at the same time, it's kind of a fault of the fact that we have to have a new game every single year. Also, you look at something like CSGO, when they have a match that drops, like the connection drops, one player lags out, they have the ability to restart the game from that exact point. They know exactly how much money every player had, what guns people had, what round it is. They can just restart it from like halfway through the game with everything the same, so you don't lose any progress. Whereas in Call of Duty, we've never had that function. If someone lags out, you have to, there's all this controversy about whether the map should be replayed, exactly what should happen. But in Counter-Strike, there's no issues with that. And in Call of Duty, if we didn't have to have a new game every year, that's something that could be developed over time. That's obviously not an urgent thing for the developers to deal with, considering, now in Black Ops 4, we've got Blackout, we've got Zombies. Competitive is basically an afterthought. It's very obvious that in Black Ops 4 competitive seems an afterthought, especially because we only have 6 events, but maybe that's a topic for another day. But definitely that idea of having a system like that where you could replay the game from any point is something that, it's not going to be added in the first year of development. It might not even be the second year that the game's out, but eventually that's something that would come into play and something that we don't have access to, given that every single year they have to basically go back to basics, the new developers, and develop the game from the ground up again. So really complex things that would be fantastic for competitive never get added. Also like rewards for watching games and things like that. Like you could get CoD points, you could get free supply drops. Like, if you watch a Counter-Strike Major, you can get drops that are actually worth real money. Something like that in Call of Duty is something that we've really never had. And okay, maybe it's an afterthought that we keep asking the developers to do further down the line. But if this thing was, we didn't have a yearly cycle, that wouldn't be a problem. They could add it a year and a month down the line, and then it would be fine for the next 2 years if the game came out every 3 years or whatever. That's exactly what we would have. Same with team camos. We always ask several months down the line every year, people are always making concept camouflages for each team. They never get added until almost the very end of the game. Black Ops 2 is a bit of an exception, but that tends to be how it's been. So of course, we have to say that Activision makes so much money making the new, Zombies, making the new typically campaign, but maybe Battle Royale from now on. Every single year they bring more things out. And I guess we can't expect anything like that for competitive in the near future. But I would say this, that if you look at games of the past, games that tend to live on across time, something like a Counter-Strike, something like, League of Legends or a Dota, or, I don't know too much about those scenes, but definitely in terms of Counter-Strike, the thing that makes games live on across the age is the competitive play, is the esports function. A game that doesn't have that on a consistent level tends to die out when people get bored of, the gameplay itself. But the competitive nature of people that like to play that game keeps people hooked for ages. So I definitely think down the line, Activision will maybe start realizing that, okay, the competitive feature of Call of Duty is something we need to invest further into if we're going to keep our player base across time that may be dwindling due to other aspects. Now, some of you guys may be familiar with Halo. As I say, I'm not too familiar with that, but a lot of people have said that considering Halo came out every, however many years, the scene would end up dying out because people got bored of playing the same game. So maybe we don't want to get stuck in that paradigm between having a Call of Duty every single year and having something that comes out so infrequently that it ends up killing the competitive scene. Maybe that's one of the reasons why Halo has been struggling as of late. But anyway, let's have a look through some of these comments because there's definitely some interesting ones here. So, in an ideal world, Morgan says that, I wish we had one game every 2 to 3 years. Break the game into seasons. You could have new maps and DLC. This is what would be fantastic. Like, in an ideal world, if money was no object, we'd have Black Ops 2, and every, several months you'd add some new guns, you'd add some new maps. The game would be played hardpoint, CTF, search and destroy. Wouldn't that just be glorious? But unfortunately, it's not something that's going to happen, at least in the near future. So yeah, I'll scroll through some comments. Yeah, as Hyper says here, he mentions the Halo situation. So if you want to pause at any point, read through these, I'll link this Reddit thread in the comment section below, of course, or in the description box, sorry. And yeah, you can check this out for yourself. So thought this comment was interesting in terms of GTA 5, maybe a different thing, but the fact that GTA 5 has made the most money of any game ever, and that's been out for ages, and, they have heists and things like that they keep adding to keep people playing the game. So, maybe that's a differential view could be considered. Yeah, so I'm splitting it. I'd love for Black Ops 4 to be the game for 3 years, but on the other hand, if World War II is around for 3 years, I don't know what would have happened to CoD. So yeah, definitely, if Activision are going to make the decision, okay, we're going to make this game every X amount of years, maybe to some extent to appeal to competitive play and help things be more consistent and competitive over time, and reduce that downtime you have in the first several months where you're really not playing the most competitive game, and you often at first events, maybe not this year at Vegas, but often at first events you've seen winners that go on not to do much towards the end of the year, like, I guess, TK, they had to change their team significantly before they got back to winning ways. Rise Nation in Infinite Warfare, the first event. Rise Nation again won the first event in Black Ops 3, I think, at South Carolina. So, definitely some interesting results you see early in the year. And if you had a longer cycle, that wouldn't be as big of an issue. But yeah, it's an interesting one whether Activision decide, okay, this is the time we're going to introduce a new game. Who are they going to entrust to make that game for 3 years? If it was Black Ops 2 remastered, no problem at all. But if you're going to let, Infinity Ward make the game, then maybe people are going to have some reservations about it. Scroll down a little bit further. This is the opinion of the person who posted it. Hitting trees, classic, really. I think this is an interesting point. By the end of the year, you see players who have really truly started to figure the game out. But I honestly don't think that in 1 year players reach their highest potential. I think we leave the game with a lot of meat on it. So, this is maybe a controversial point. Some people would say that Call of Duty, there really isn't too much strategy and things you can consider to keep the game fresh, which maybe is true to some extent. But I think he's getting onto something. Towards the end of the year, you tend to see players really get well into their defined roles that work the best. It takes several months for people to figure out exactly how the best way to play the game is. In World War II, of course, we had smokes, we had different strategies you could use in search and destroy, and things were still evolving nicely, I thought, towards the end of the game in terms of what strategies people were pulling out. It wasn't getting too stale, apart from maybe the game itself. People didn't particularly enjoy watching. But I think he's onto something there that maybe would be improved if we had a longer season cycle. Yeah, and I think this point strikes on something that's pretty important. Like, if you get the game wrong, we've always had that hope in Call of Duty that, okay, this game isn't great, but at least next year it's going to be quality, it's going to save Call of Duty. If that potential better game is 3 years down the line, like, there's a lot of people that are just going to dip out of the competitive scene entirely. So as I say in the title of this video, the blessing and the curse of the yearly cycle of Call of Duty, definitely a series name that I was considering. Doing a blessing and a curse on something like the high time to kill in Black Ops 4, maybe even optics, monopolization of the fan base or something like that. You could have, both sides to it. People have probably used this title idea before, but I thought it'd be interesting. Thought it up a while ago, and I think it goes nicely with this concept. So I'll probably have a series along these sort of ideas going down the line, maybe a video every month or so on something I'm thinking about. But anyway, those are my thoughts for today. Those are some of Reddit's thoughts, and yeah, be interested to hear what you think in the comment section below. Hope you have a fantastic new year. Stay safe, all that good stuff. And yeah, like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. And I'll see you all in 2019. It's going to be a fantastic year, I'm sure of it. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.